It's ArtFx for Bass Gorilla, and I'm gonna show you how to create cinematic pads using ArtFx Serum. Let's get to it. So cinematic pads are really fun to make, but I think you should work in layers a lot when you create these, because that way you have a lot more control over what the sound is gonna be like. So I'm gonna be starting off with just creating a little bit of a pattern so that we have slightly different notes going on, and I'm just gonna do a one semitone change. I think that's something that I do a lot in drum and bass, and therefore I think that's what I should be doing with this whole pad in the video. Now I'm gonna load up ArtFx Serum, and Serum is a really great tool. It's a really good synthesizer for making your own sounds, because you have a lot of control over all the stuff in the synth. Now there are other good synths as well, but I just like Serum a lot for stuff like this. Now a pad is pretty simple to make. What you'll usually start with is bringing up the attack time and bringing up the release time, so you get like that kind of a thing. So we can zoom out a bit so we can see the entire envelope. Now this is envelope number 1, which is controlling the volume of the sound. So now we have you can hear that little thing that happened sound a little bit weird. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the release time down a bit so we don't get that. And I'm also going to make this slightly shorter, by the way, because I think the notes are a little long. So what I can do is we can do this maybe, and let's just loop that section. Now we get that little bit of a wobble going on, but that's fine. We're gonna work on this and see how we can how it's gonna sound. So one oscillator. Let's choose maybe one of the spectral ones. Let's try and see what's in here. Let's drop it down in pitch a bit. Let's add a couple of voices. Now, I think the notes can actually be a little longer. Sorry for that, but we're just gonna bring it back towards the longer notes. Because we cinematic pads usually evolve a lot over time, and having these longer notes can well, allows us to have them evolve over time. So now one thing that I want to do is assign an LFO to this wavetable position to kind of create a little bit of movement. I'm going to make the movement 4 bars. Now every one of these notes is 4 bars, so that means that during the time that this note is playing, this LFO is going to go up and it's going to go back down. That's just going to create a little bit of movement. Now for the next oscillator, I'm gonna go with one with quite a lot of voices. So let's do 8 voices and go into the global tab, and I'm gonna set the modes for both of the oscillators to super. That means we're gonna get a little bit more room. We can actually do a little bit more detuning. It affects the way the voices are distributed. You can see that the outer voices are further apart than the middle voices, and that gives us a little bit more room to add a bit more detuning. So now we have a saw wave on top, and what I want to do is add a filter and run both of these through the filter. And let's drop the filter pretty low. And I'm going to assign an LFO another envelope, so we're going to use envelope number 2, and we're going to assign it to the cutoff. And I'm not going to bring it up a lot, I'm just going to bring it up slightly. And I'm gonna change this speed here, this attack time, to make it come up a little slower than the amp envelope is doing. Then I'm gonna go and drop the sustain value down a bit, and we're gonna make that quite a bit longer. And then we're just gonna add a good amount of release. Let's bring that up a little bit more so we have a little bit of a longer decay time. And we can maybe do something like that so it goes down a little bit in a linear kind of shape. And now we can actually bring up this value. And maybe I want to make the attack time shorter. So we have a little bit of a cool sound now. Let's add the hyperdimension. It's going to create more stereo width. Now another thing, we need some reverb on this. Nice long reverb. A little bit shorter maybe. And I'm going to bring up the low cut so it's not going to have any low frequencies in the reverb sound. That's nice. Let's bring it up a bit. And I'm going to add an EQ to this, and let's do a high pass. And let's do a low pass as well. Now I'm going to add this LFO to this frequency, so we're going to bring it down slightly. This is going to create a little bit more movement. And now finally we can maybe add a compressor and bring the attack time down all the way, just to control maybe any peaks that are happening because of this filtering. And I'm going to bring the attack time up a little bit, so we don't get any clicks. So that's the first layer in this sound. Now I'm going to group this, and I'm going to add another layer to it. So let's drag another Serum in our rack. And I'm going to start off with just some saw waves. So let's again do 8 voices. Go into here and set these to super. And let's just see how that sounds. I'm gonna bring up the attack time again and give it a good amount of release. Now let's add a low pass filter to this. And let's assign envelope number 2 to this low pass filter. And I'm also going to assign LFO number 1 to this same low pass. You can hear the movement that it's creating, and I'm going to use this rise time. So I want it to rise up over 4 bars. Let's make that range a little smaller, so it's not as pronounced. And I'm gonna bring the sustain value down a bit as well, and then just bring this up a little bit so the filter closes back down ever so slightly. And I'm gonna set this to trigger, so it re-triggers the LFO every time we trigger a note. And now we can actually play with maybe a second oscillator. And I don't know, what can we do? Let's try this one. Let's do a good amount of voices again. And I'm not gonna run it through the same low pass filter. I'm going to, well, yes, let's just, should we do it? Well, maybe we should. Yeah, we should. So that's our second layer. I want to add a little bit of distortion to it. We definitely want to have a little bit of reverb on it. Now, note, we have added the reverb in Serum, and since we're using multiple layers, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the reverb off in Serum. And I'm going to do the same for this one. I'm going to keep the reverb off. And I'm also going to automate this wavetable position. With a different LFO though. I'm going to use LFO number 2. Let's create it a 4-bar range. So like that. And now I want to do one final layer. So I'm going to create another chain. And this time I'm going to start with Dirty Saw, maybe. Let's try the Dirty Saw. Add some voices. Now let's change the attack time. Let's change the release time as well. And let's do maybe a bandpass filter on this one. And we can use an LFO to change this value over time, and I think that will be pretty cool. Let's do trigger, and I'm gonna create a 1.5 bar. I think that's gonna be nice. Let's So there we have a nice pad sound. I can go in here, add maybe a little bit of the hyperdimension. Let's add some chorus to this, and I'm gonna add the chorus to the high frequencies. So now we have a good chord sound. Let's see how this sounds with a let's see how it sounds with a chord. So I'm creating an F minor chord here. Let's see how that sounds. So it sounds nice, but we need to EQ this. This layer needs to be EQ'd. Let's add an EQ8 to this layer. That's much better. And this layer, we need to bring this down an octave. and I think it will be nice if we add envelope number 2. Quite a long time, so let's see how long is this note. It's 5 seconds, so I'm gonna make it about 5 seconds long, and I'm gonna bring this to the cutoff position of the filter, which is gonna mean that during the times of these notes this filter is gonna open up as well. Then we can make a really quick little chord progression maybe. And we have the speed here on the LFO. Let's make it 2 bars. Now I also noticed that the filter closes really quickly here, and that's because the release time is at a pretty low setting, so let's just bring that up. That makes it sound a lot better. Now, let's add an EQ to the entire sound, so above the rack. I can add maybe a little chorus again. I'm going to duplicate these notes so we have a little bit more stuff to work with. And let's add a chorus to the entire sound here. It's going to create a little bit more stereo width, and I think it sounds pretty good already. Now what I want to do is I want to create one final layer, because we need some low end. There isn't really that much low frequencies in this sound, so I'm gonna use only the bottom notes of the chords, and let's do that real quick so we can clearly see the second layer. And I'm again gonna use ArtFx Serum, because Serum is just a really good synthesizer, and I'm gonna drop this down into the bass range. And I'm gonna give this 2 voices, or more maybe. Let's give it 8 voices, and let's assign a low pass filter to it. So we get that, and now we can change these attack and release times. Now what we could do is, instead of going down to a C note here, we could go up to create a little bit of a different vibe. And now let's listen to that together with the other chords that we already created. Now, next up, I would like to add some processing to both of these layers. So I'm going to start with a EQ. And I'm also going to add a delay to it, so let's do a ping pong delay. I like ping pong delay for these kind of stuff. Let's do a 6 on the timing, so it's a little bit offbeat. And let's bring the dry wet down a bit. Keep that feedback pretty high, maybe about halfway. And next up, the final thing that I should add is a reverb. Now you can use Ableton Live's native reverb, but there are better sounding reverbs, and the one I really like is Valhalla Vintage Verb. So let's put that on here. And what we're gonna do is I'm going to bring the mix down to about halfway, and that should pretty much do the trick. Now I'm also gonna bring this low cut up so we're not getting any sub bass in the reverb itself. And let's just listen to how this sounds. So there you have it. That's how you can make pretty interesting sounding pad sounds with a synthesizer like Serum. I hope you liked this video, and I'll see you back soon.